We talk about washing, and nourishing us, but we talk about we talk about we use water in baptism, right? And we talk about how it's God's grace that covers us, that forgives us. In baptism, this is more powerful at the end of this story, but for congregations who use immersion for baptism, baptism is about when you go under, it is a death and then a resurrection to new life. Okay? Because we do what they call what I do sprinkling, because we just use a little bit of water. That is more about acknowledging the grace that is already within the child. It's about naming that this child is part of the family of God and making sure that we, and hopefully maybe the child, depending on how old the child is, know that. It's more of our recognition of what's already present and what's present within the water. So all of these things are playing into a story about water when we read it. It's also good to remember that the particularly Genesis, and Exodus really too, but particularly Genesis, started out as oral stories. These were stories that were told and passed down from generation to generation. So it's not unlikely that this story could have been told in the middle of a rainstorm with a child that didn't understand what was happening and may have been a little afraid. Because humanity, hopefully you've heard me say this before, humanity started in an area called Mesopotamia, which uses the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers as its border. It was an area that was it wasn't a valley per se, but it's a lower land. So when it rains, the rivers are going to swell. It might flood a little bit. There's a large mountain range beside it. The water's going to come down the mountain and add to the flooding. So we approach this story more as a grandfather telling the child, don't worry, because a long time ago there was this great flood and God chose to be merciful. But now let's look at what's actually in this text. Well, now one more thing before we do that. What do we know about this story? This is not Noah's Ark. The Noah's Ark story it's probably not a new story to many of us, if any. What do you remember that should be in this story? Anybody? The animals were paired. A dove or a bird comes back with a branch and says, there's land. A guy actually built an ark. And we have all of the measurements for it, right? It's very specific about how long it was supposed to be and how tall and how wide, and we have all of that in there. Oh, nice. The older Sunday school class measured, and they found out that it's as long as our educational wing. That's how big the boat was. So they did some study there for measurement. What else do we know about when you think of Noah's Ark? What do you think of? That's it? All right. Boy, do you have a lot to you're going to find out all kinds of stuff today.